Okay, folks, buckle up because we're diving deep into some pretty wild geopolitical waters today.
Sounds exciting. I'm ready.
We're talking Jamaica, the BRICS nations, and a warning shot across the bow from none other than former President Trump himself.
It's definitely a headline grabber. You don't see that every day.
Not every day, no, sir. So for our listeners who maybe haven't been following this whole BRICS thing too closely,
Yeah,
can you give us just a quick, BRICS 101? What is this all about?
absolutely. So BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And it's basically this economic bloc that's been gaining a lot of steam in recent years, kind of positioning themselves as a counterweight to the traditional Western powers like the U.S. and Europe.
Right, so we're talking about a potential power shift on the global stage here.
And exactly. And Jamaica's right in the middle of it.
Which brings us to Trump's warning. So this is where things get really interesting, right? I mean,
Yeah.
why would a former U.S. president even care what Jamaica does? You know what I mean?
Well, it might seem random at first, but it actually makes a lot of sense when you consider the historical relationship between the U.S. and Jamaica.
Okay, I'm listening.
So the U.S. has had a pretty heavy hand in the Caribbean for, a long time, wielding a lot of economic and political influence, like trade agreements, military presence, you name it.
Right, so it's kind of like America's backyard in a way.
You could say that, and for someone like Trump, who's all about America first,
Right.
this rise of BRICS, this whole idea of a multipolar world where power is more distributed, that's got to be a little unsettling.
So he's basically trying to keep Jamaica in the U.S. fold.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah, he's sending a message like, hey, Jamaica, stick with the team. We've got your back.
But could there be other, motivations at play here, too?
Oh, absolutely. We can't forget about the domestic political scene back in the U.S.
True.
Tapping into those anxieties about a changing world order, positioning himself as, the defender of American interests that could play really well with a certain segment of his base.
So it's not just about Jamaica. It's about Trump, too.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Okay, well, speaking of Trump, let's actually hear what he had to say, shall we?
Let's do it.
We've got a clip from the Hopton Lifestyle podcast where he really lays into this whole BRICS thing.
I'm curious to hear this.
Roll it.
Why does Donald Trump want China out of Jamaica? Jamaica is the focal point of a global power struggle between two of the world's most powerful nations, the United States and China. One person who made his stance crystal clear is Donald Trump. As U.S. president, Trump was vocal about his concerns over China's global ambitions, including its growing footprint in Jamaica. But why is Trump so determined to push China out of Jamaica? What does this small Caribbean nation represent in the larger chessboard of global politics? To understand Trump's concerns, let's start with geography. Jamaica is no ordinary island. It's a gateway. Strategically located in the heart of the Caribbean, Jamaica sits on vital shipping lanes connecting North and South America, Europe, and beyond. Jamaica is also home to one of the most modern shipping ports in the Western Hemisphere. The Kingston Freeport Terminal is a key hub for trade, making Jamaica a critical player in global logistics and commerce. It's no surprise that China has been investing heavily in Jamaica, pouring billions into infrastructure like the North-South Highway, ports, and renewable energy projects. But to the U.S., these investments are more than economic. They're strategic moves in a larger game of influence. According to Trump, China is not just taking over. They're setting up shop everywhere. And he's not going to let that happen in the U.S. own backyard. Throughout his presidency, Trump viewed China as a direct competitor to the United States. For him, it wasn't just about trade deficits or military power. It was about influence, especially in regions historically dominated by the U.S., like the Caribbean. In Trump's eyes, China's growing footprint in Jamaica wasn't just a business opportunity. It was a threat to U.S. dominance in the Western Hemisphere. And for a president who championed America first, losing ground in the Caribbean was simply unacceptable. One of the most striking examples of China's influence in Jamaica is the North-South Highway. Built by the China Harbor Engineering Company, this $730 million project connects Kingston to Ocho Rios, slashing travel times and boosting tourism. As part of the deal, China received a 50-year concession to collect toll revenue, a move that has sparked debates about sovereignty and long-term economic dependency. China's involvement doesn't stop there. It has modernized Jamaica's shipping infrastructure, turning the Kingston Freeport into a key node in its Belt and Road Initiative, a global strategy to expand China's influence through trade and infrastructure. But why does Trump care so much about China's presence in Jamaica? The answer boils down to three key factors: strategic control, economic competition, and regional influence. Jamaica's ports, highways, and proximity to the Panama Canal make it a critical location for controlling trade routes. Trump feared that China's investments could give Beijing undue influence over these key assets. Jamaica's bauxite industry, renewable energy sector, and booming tourism market are areas where China is gaining a foothold, challenging U.S. economic interests. By funding massive infrastructure projects, China is winning hearts and minds in Jamaica, potentially shifting political allegiances in a region the U.S. has long considered its own sphere of influence. Under Trump, the U.S. ramped up its presence in the Caribbean. Programs like the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative and USAID provided funding for public safety, education, and renewable energy in Jamaica. However, these efforts often couldn't match China's large-scale infrastructure investments. In comparison, China gave Jamaica $2 billion in infrastructure, ports, and energy, while the U.S. gave $619 million in development aid and trade incentives. The numbers reveal the challenge. While the U.S. focuses on security and governance, China is reshaping Jamaica's physical landscape. According to Jamaica's Prime Minister, Jamaica welcomes partnerships with all nations, as long as they align with the country's vision for sustainable development. Jamaica's leaders are navigating a complex balancing act. While they embrace China's infrastructure investments, they are also working closely with the U.S. to maintain trade ties and regional security. This delicate diplomacy reflects Jamaica's broader Vision 2030, a strategy to achieve sustainable development and economic growth. So, why does Trump want China out of Jamaica? The answer lies in a mix of strategic control, economic rivalry, and the fear of losing influence in a region crucial to America's interests. But for Jamaica, the question isn't just about choosing sides. It's about charting a path that secures its own future. What do you think? Should Jamaica lean toward the U.S., embrace China's investments, or find a way to work with both? Let us know in the comments below.